glad that you could join us today for Bridges. I'm Monica Schmelter, and my first guest today is Tony Bolton. And Tony, it's good to have you on Bridges.
Oh, it's good to be here this morning.
I'm glad to have you, and we're going to talk about the important subject of fatherhood and men. So let's start off with your family. How many children do you have?
We have 4. We have 2 boys, 2 girls. We have 2 older daughters and 2 younger sons. And so we thought we were finished with kids. And then along came our boy, and then we had another one on purpose. So,
There
you know,
you go.
but they're like 10 to 14 years difference between them. So.
Well, you know, Tony, we hear all the time about the importance of fatherhood and being a godly father, and yet for men, sometimes I hear so many men say that they feel like church is made for women and they don't get so much out of it. So let's talk first about the fatherhood part. What were some of the challenges, and how did you become a godly father?
Well, I was fortunate enough to have a great dad.
That's awesome.
And I was raised in a Christian home. So my father and I had such a great relationship. And you take a lot of things for granted in life. And that is one of them, because you think like everybody's like us. But then you really hear and see and, you know,
everybody's not like you.
No. As a matter of fact, a good friend of mine that I went to school with in just recent years shared about, you know, his tragic home life. Well, as growing up, I was around him all the time, never knew anything was going on. So behind closed doors, you don't know what people are experiencing. But for me, I had a great relationship. And so it really, and then my wife's dad was a great father. So anyway, so we had a good foundation to build on. You know,
so you brought a lot of good things into the family because you had a rich heritage.
Exactly, the heritage was there. So for me, and when we became conscious of expression, like for a lot of guys who grow up as a dad, it's learned behavior. My dad never hugged, so I don't hug. Hugging is not who I am. But you know, you learn things, and once you learn things, you realize the benefit. So we became huggers. And we began to tell, hey, I love you. So today, what a great thing. You pick up your phone anytime. Hey, hope you have a great day. Love you, see you, bye. And that's kind of one of our things. So we consciously, and it kind of spread through our family, who on my side was not really huggers, and on my wife's side was never huggers. And so all of a sudden, people began to put a little expression behind, hey, love you. And so when we leave, that's kind of our trademark now. Okay, love you, see you, bye.
So it means a lot.
Yes.
You know, so the message is that we can learn different behaviors.
Oh, yes.
And I think, you know, as far as our children are concerned, adults or young, we need that hug. We need that affirmation of touch.
That's what it is.
And I think that, you know, sometimes men, as you say, are raised with, you know, this is not what we do, this is not manly.
It's not cool.
Yeah.
It's not cool. And so consequently, that goes on to the next generation. You're passing things on whether you realize it or not.
Right.
And I think, you know, if you, around our house sometimes, my girls especially, can mimic you, and they say what you say. And so you don't realize what you say until you hear it back. You go, Dad, that's you. And I go, yeah.
And you know, I think that's one of the things about parenting and fatherhood and just being a parent in general, that you get to see what you're like as you get older, and you see that in your child who's now an adult, and you're like, oh, that's what that looks like.
That's right. The acorn doesn't fall far from the tree.
It doesn't. What would you say now as you look back in raising your children and being a godly father? Are there things that you wish that you would have done differently or had a second chance to do?
Absolutely. And, you know, I want to bring in the fact, you know, like my ministry is to men, and we do hunting.
Yeah.
And every time you go hunting, you learn something, because you can never enter the woods without learning something. If you do, you don't go back, because you kind of like, you're unteachable. Because, and that's the kind of the way I look at it with raising kids, you know. Every time you have a child, it's a different child. So the same thing you did with one doesn't work with the other.
Right.
And so in hunting, one of the key things you always say is, listen, did you hear that? And as I was learning about the outdoors and all this kind of stuff, I would hear a guy go, listen, did you hear that? And I'd go, no. What are you hearing? It's learned behavior, because he's trained his ear to hear certain things. And I think as a father, I think I would be more keen to stop and listen and go, my daughter's telling me something, but I didn't hear it.
Yeah.
Or my son's trying to relate to me without telling me the whole scenario.
Uh-huh.
And if I had trained myself better to say, wait a minute, tell me a little bit about that situation. Or I could enter in or open the door because I would stop, look, and listen.
Yeah.
We wrote a song like that, stop, look, and listen. And it's very key into raising children or other areas of your life. You've got to stop, look, and listen. And listen is a key thing, I think.
Yeah, and listening is such a gift to be able to give
It is a gift.
to our children. We're talking about fatherhood today and men's ministry and just the importance of listening. And so I think that sometimes we can, as parents, be afraid to listen or be so busy that we're not listening.
Absolutely.
And but what you're saying is that's something that if you could do over again, you would listen more.
Yes.
But the hunting thing, like that intrigues me. Like I am interested in your ministry. Because I saw on your website that you're an enthusiast about the outdoors. And I have heard, Tony, so many times over the years on this show and personally, how men just feel like there's nothing really at church for them.
Right.
And you kind of get these guys and you go out into the woods and you say you learn spiritual lessons there too?
Absolutely. Well, a lot of what I do is, say, a particular church or some host will sponsor a men's outdoor event. And what that'll be is it'll be a whole evening. Sometimes they call it a wild game dinner, just lots of different names. Beast and Feast or Blast and Cast or whatever. There's all kind of different names because it encompasses people who love to fish and hunt. So it's all outdoors. But the main thing is we kind of get together because I call it my camo connection. So the guys who are in the outdoors or ladies or whatever, especially men, when they see a guy in camo, they go, oh, there's a bro. He gets it, Yeah. So, and a lot of times people who are not involved in church, they feel that way. The church doesn't get me. They don't understand. Right. I'm into the outdoors. I love to hunt, fish, and it's nothing there for me. So when we do an event like that, we really try to not do Christianese, I call it, the language of the church, the amens or whatever. So I use a term called booyah, which means how awesome is that, So when you sing a song like Our God's an Awesome God, then you can go booyah,
All right.
Or after you just shot something or caught something, you throw your hands up and go, booyah, how awesome was that? And you're looking for somebody to give you affirmation,
Absolutely.
Whatever it was. So when we do those events, we try to connect that we are understanding where you're coming from.
Yeah.
We have the same love and passion.
Right. Well, there's something relatable. There's a connection there. And I think that those defenses of being in a church building or feeling awkward or like, I don't know what to do here.
Right.
Because we forget if we've been going to church for a long time, people that haven't been there forever don't know what to do there.
Exactly.
They're like, okay, I don't know.
And they're a minority because they feel awkward or whatever. So I try to tell people, okay, you're not in church. This is not church.
Yeah.
We're just a bunch of guys talking about hunting and fishing and our love and passion. But then I get a chance to bring in the gospel and actually pray with them. And it's been fantastic to see, like probably 50% of the guys who come to these events are unchurched. They don't go to church or whatever. And I was just in Erie, Pennsylvania, and 27 guys or so gave their heart to the Lord. Yeah. Another 27 rededicated their life.
That's miraculous.
It is. It's phenomenal.
That's miraculous because, when you look at men and not feeling at home in church, and we're talking about fatherhood today, all the studies show that if a child doesn't have a father that's present in their lives, they don't do as well in school.
Sure.
They don't do as well growing up. This fatherhood key is just critical to a child's development and growing up. So
it's a missing piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And I think I realized that more as my sons came along because probably, and I'll just use probably 7 out of 10 of their friends didn't have a dad at home.
Exactly.
So, I'm like, wow. So we would have these, my wife tours and sings and speaks. So when she was gone, she would say, what do you have? And I said, oh, I got the, Young Men of God church going on over here. What I was saying was I've got my sons and all their buddies coming to our house for pizza, and we're just having a good time. But then I would get a chance to pray with them. And
Yes, and I think that that's something that men in the church can do for their sons, their daughters, and kids in the
Absolutely.
community. Be a role model, especially if that child doesn't have a father that can be present in the life or that wants to be present.
Absolutely.
What are some of the things that you teach men about being a godly father, about how to overcome some of the obstacles that men face, you know, like career and financial pressure and all of that? How do you overcome that to be a good dad?
Well, I think one of the things you have to realize that God never called you to make a living. He called you to make a difference.
Amen.
So it's a tragic thing in our life when we spend all of our time and our effort over a career, over making money, whatever, and then we lose our family.
Yeah.
So that's a total failure in my book. That's
It is.
not a winner.
It's a total failure.
It's a total failure.
Mhm.
So it's just like we were sharing earlier. One of the songs I sing typically in a men's event is "You Can't Take It With You," and what it is, it's opportunities that we have
Yeah.
to speak into our kids. Let them know you're real. Be authentic. You know, I don't want my kids to think I'm one person here with you this
Right.
morning, and then this afternoon, oh, you don't know the real dad.
Right.
I want to be authentic, and I want them to realize that I have ethics. You know, my kids all know me. Dad's a rule player. He's a rule player. If it says don't park, he's not going to park. You know, and those are things that I think that you teach ethics. It's a sad day. A friend of mine, good friend of mine, he has to teach ethics to Christians at a Christian college, and I'm thinking,
Yeah. We've lost so much.
what is wrong with this picture?
Yeah, so much is wrong.
If anything should be a part of our character, which is our God reflection of who He is that we have ethics and we
Amen.
have, we have principles that we live by.
And that would be in us because Christ
Absolutely.
is in us. And
Absolutely.
we've got just a minute left.
Sure.
I know we're talking about fatherhood. You mentioned your wife and traveling and singing. What is this Let's Take a Country Road?
It's a well.